Without any known offspring, Audrey Meadows passed away in 1996. Music, she had a clear will. Charity and family received her estate. However, a 1959 birth certificate and a DNA test were found in a manila envelope that was brought into a Los Angeles legal office in March 2025. Music. Everyone was astonished by its name. This individual asserts that they have been Audrey's secret child for 66 years. They possess adoption documents, medical records, music, and genetic evidence that could change the course of television history. The Meadows family is retaliating, but it is becoming more difficult to ignore the evidence. The whole story is here. Audrey Carter was born on February 8, 1922, in Wuchang, China, an area that was tense and far from everything that was recognizable to Westerners. Due to their job as Episcopal missionaries, her parents were kept apart from other foreigners. As a result, the Carter children spent their first 5 years of life speaking exclusively Chinese. They consumed plain food. They played with whatever toys the neighborhood kids had. They were unaware of the appearance of American toys. When Audrey first arrived in America at the age of 5, she said she had no idea what ice cream tasted like. Life was peaceful, orderly, and, music, strict. This early seclusion was carried by all 4 of the Carter children. Audrey and her siblings first heard music, English spoken on a daily basis when the family, music, eventually moved to Providence, Rhode Island in 1927. China had become into a perilous place for missionaries, therefore the decision was abrupt. There was growing anti-foreign discontent. Threats were circulating quickly. Her parents left with little to no notice, packing up, music, the kids. They attempted to establish a new routine after arriving in Providence. After Audrey's father was appointed rector, music, of St. John's Cathedral, the kids started attending New England schools. However, music seemed odd in every way. They were impressed by doorbells. Machines for washing seemed to work like magic. Ice cream cones didn't feel genuine either. Although the boys attended Moses Brown School and the girls attended Lincoln School, the family was still dealing with unspoken hardship. The Great Depression was beginning to take hold. The finances were tight. Unable to overlook the starvation in his immediate surroundings, Audrey's father established a soup kitchen at the cathedral. Her parents did not discuss their personal concerns at home. Even though they weren't, they wanted the kids to feel safe with music. This quiet become a routine. Within their household, private issues were kept confidential. The Carters felt that consistent smiles and restrained emotions were necessary for both their profession and their reputation. The danger they encountered in China, particularly the night they secretly left Wuchang, was never discussed. The youngest, Audrey, learnt early on to suppress her emotions. She made an effort to be quiet. As a young child, she even attempted to conceal the injuries she received from falling through a skylight. She didn't feel like the other children. And it was a sense that remained. The Carter children were raised to be quiet, obedient, and responsible since it is how their parents overcame adversity. From 1937 until 1940, Audrey was a student at the Bington School for Girls, where she was immersed in a world that was unfamiliar to her. She excelled in choir, and the school placed a strong emphasis on academics and the arts. Her music was distinctive. Although her confidence increased, students made fun of her accent and the anecdotes she told about her upbringing in China. Music, they referred to her by nicknames such as the China Girl. They made fun of the meals she talked about or the traditions she recalled. Every day, Audrey worked to make her accent softer. The music was steady and safe, so she clung to it. Even though the hurt of being teased continued her into adulthood, by the time she graduated from school, her voice had become her shield. At 18, she desired something her parents could never have envisioned by 1940. She wanted action from music. The stage was what she desired. She informed them that she was in New York City to see her sister Jane. However, she had a covert strategy to stay. She had a Broadway audition. She shared a home with other young actresses who were all pursuing the same goal, the rehearsal club. She stretched every dollar, worked odd jobs, and persevered despite feeling rejected all the time. Her parents had insisted that she attend college or take a more traditional route. Rather, she made the most audacious choice of her life, which ended up landing her the iconic role of Alice Creighton on The Honeymooners. However, that would not yet occur. Before she arrived at that point, Audrey's narrative took several different turns. She had already experienced the stage at the age of 16, 2 years before fleeing to New York. She sang at a youth recital at Carnegie Hall in 1938 as a colorura soprano. There were 120 seats in the hall, and the $1 tickets made it a big event for young performers. Critics later described her voice as ethereally clean and forceful as she performed music, Puccini-eras. She was afraid her father would object, so she never told him. It was her secret beginning, she said. A seed was sown by that brief experience in New York. She carried in silence until she was prepared to give it her whole attention. She worked in summer, music, stock theaters throughout New England from 1940 until 1942. For $40 a week, she performed in the Providence Opera House's 1941 production of Roberta. When she started improvising new lines during performances, the director noted that she was initially tucked into the chorus, merging into harmonies behind the lead. He promoted her music. Before long, she was singing solos during curtain calls for $75 a week. She learned rhythm, timing, and music during these summers that rehearsals cannot provide on their own. She performed Anything Goes on tour with the Detroit Civic Light Opera in 1943. Every week, she made $150. For her age, the money was good. Life backstage, in music, was difficult, though. She dealt with male co-workers' offensive remarks and awkward attention. She was both frightened and empowered by it. She gradually changed her concentration from just singing to acting after realizing she desired more control over her creative life. Her humorous flair earned her accolades for her performances. And the course of her career was completely altered by this adjustment. She made her first significant comedic breakthrough the next year, in 1944. Good News in Chicago's lead was understudied by her. Everything went awry a week before the grand opening. The main actress got sick. The scripts were clumsy. The filmmaker was becoming unmanageable. Audrey took over with very little preparation. She added short humor and impromptu remarks when the crowd became restless due to a lapse in the script. Everyone chuckled. They clapped. The audience gave her a standing ovation. Critics referred to her as the unexpected hit. She did not anticipate what she found that evening. She had the ability to naturally make people laugh. She starred in Louisville's Noette in 1945. The stage lights went out at one performance, making the actors all but invisible. Audrey continued rather than freezing. She directed her focus towards her voice and responses, helping the audience navigate the confusion. She carried the program during a disaster, and critics commended her for it. Because it taught her, music, that the performer, not the lighting or props, is what gives a performance, she would never forget that night. She moved back to New York permanently by 1948. Once more, she shared a small room with 20 other women at the rehearsal club, making do with $10 a week. Casting directors rejected her numerous auditions because they thought her appearance was too out of the ordinary. But she wouldn't give up. One tiny step at a time, she gained confidence as she persevered through hunger and fatigue. The Broadway production of Top Banana in 1951 was her turning point. They practiced for 6 months, 12 hours a day. The production was a success and lasted for 350 shows at the Winter Garden Theater. Top producers were impressed with Audrey's performance in the part. Inspired by a motto from her early years in Rhode Island, she changed her stage name to Audrey Meadows. She was no longer the timid child who was raised alone. She was starting to take shape. Music, she twisted her ankle on stage one night during Top Banana. Most performers would have been stopped by the acute pain, but Audrey persisted. She limped throughout the entire performance, music, desperate not to let the crowd down. Her fortitude was commended by the show's star, Phil Silvers, who also personally recommended her to agents. This incident demonstrated her toughness and became something of a Broadway legend. She joined the Bob and Ray Show on NBC between Music, 1951 and 1953. As the sole female member of the cast, she provided the voices of over 50 roles. She experimented, improvised, and improved her timing for comedy. Her ability to switch between roles made her memorable, and the show served as a springboard for her future on television. After that, she worked as an understudy in a Broadway revue in 1953. Audrey drew his attention with her prompt responses and unafraid improvisations, while Jackie Gleason made cameos. He was drawn to her. He suggested her to his group. She went on to play Alice Creighton on The Honeymooners, which became her most famous role. She matched his vigor, remained firm, and shone the spark she had carried since she was a young girl, which is why it happened. In 1951, Jackie Gleason viewed Audrey Meadows' picture for the first time. He hesitated at something about the steady, solid way she held her face. Even before he heard her voice, he thought she might be Alice Creighton. She was still unknown in television, so producers hurried to discover her. She performed on Broadway. Although she had worked on radio, she had not yet ventured into sitcoms. She was immediately rejected by Gleason when they brought her in because she appeared too glitzy. The producers gave it another go and sent him fresh pictures. She appeared serious and unremarkable this time, as if Alice, music, had left Brooklyn. Gleason reconsidered. Then, in 1954, she showed up for the actual audition, dressed simply in a house dress, and gave a scathing Brooklyn monologue that blasted, music, a fictional husband. Her edge was genuine. Her timing was flawless. Even without extensive TV experience, she outperformed over 300 actresses. Her attitude made music come naturally to her. At age 32, Audrey displayed a different aspect of her strength. She negotiated a deal that no one in the 1950s expected from an actress when she joined The Honeymooners. Relatives, she asked. She developed the clause with the assistance of her lawyer brother, Edward. A portion of each replay was what she desired. The only member of the cast to request it was she. Only Audrey got compensated when the original 39 episodes resumed airing. She earned millions from those replays throughout the years. Music, Art Carney and Joyce Randolph were left out because it was not part of their contracts. By asking for something that almost no one understood at the time, Audrey rose to become one of the top-paid music sitcom actresses of her time. In October, her debut episode was broadcast. Music, The Honeymooners began as a half-hour program. It was all modified by a single line. Ralph, go to the moon. American culture was swept by the slogan, which further increased the show's appeal. In terms of ratings, the program occasionally outperformed I Love Lucy, music. Behind the scenes, Audrey persevered despite Gleason's demanding expectations and protracted rehearsals. 20 rehearsals of the same scene would be performed. In the event that errors occurred, they were broadcast live. Every moment was carried by her deadpan expression. In an attempt to give Alice a better life than Ralph had permitted, admirers became so devoted to her that they mailed her hundreds of aprons and curtains. About 15% of Audrey's lines began to change in music during the 1955 to 1956 season. Her spontaneous responses gave Alice a sense of life. Tension was created by the abrupt transitions, but they also added the spark that the crowd adored. Gleason wanted scripts to be adhered to exactly. He occasionally requested revisions. He occasionally requested reshoots. But her ad-libs remained. They came to be associated with the iconic 39 episodes. The impact of her contract continued to grow, and they contributed to the development of the natural rhythm that is still discussed today. Not a single cast member made money from syndication except Audrey. Music, for many years, the iconic 39 was played. Even after her death in 1996, such payments continued. Because of those checks, she was even portrayed as extremely music affluent in a 1988 Washington Post piece. She established a benchmark for upcoming TV deals. Her vision altered the way celebrities bargained for reruns. Music from that era continues to influence television now. Everything on the set erupted in April 1955. Gleason insisted on sticking to a sexist statement that Audrey challenged. He became furious. The actors froze. Audrey refused to back down. She left the studio right away and wouldn't let music come back until producers intervened. They crossed the queue. She returned with music. Everyone remembers that moment. She became the set's moral compass. She was the only one capable of defeating Leon. Her co-stars recalled the incident, describing the atmosphere that day as a cloud hanging over them. But it also demonstrated the regard she was held in. Her physique was impacted by the pressure during filming the lost 39 episodes in 1955. To cope with the burden of music, Audrey smoked 3 packs of cigarettes every day. A big prop door slammed shut on her hand one day. Despite having a severe sprain, she concealed the injuries. She spent weeks playing despite pain and edema. She never even gave the camera a glimpse of discomfort. With quiet courage, she dealt with the kind of sacrifice that actresses made in the early days of live television. There was unprecedented fan attention. She used to get 5,000 letters every week. Many contained directions, on how to file for divorce as well as advice on how Alice should handle Ralph. During interviews, Audrey read aloud the most outrageous notes and made jokes about them. But she was troubled by some letters, The distinction between her role and actual life was blurred by fans. The overwhelming volume, however, demonstrated how deeply her performance resonated with the spectators. There was a technical issue during a live broadcast in 1956. The scene stopped. There was a problem in the control room. 5 complete minutes were all Audrey had to improvise. She never faltered and kept the audience interested with her light-hearted humor. Later, she received a $500 bonus and compliments from Leon for it. For live television, those 5 minutes were forever. The team never forgot it, and she handled it with ease. Audrey became good friends with Art Carney off-screen. He confided in her about his private concerns. Work was uncertain because of Leon's drinking, which he frequently shared with her. To assist him in retreating, they tried minor interventions together. They didn't promote it. All they wanted was for the event to continue to operate properly. During some of the set's most turbulent periods, their cooperation helped remain stable. The program attracted almost 30 million weekly viewers by 1956. Audrey's role changed to co-lead with Leon since she was so well-liked. The show occasionally even surpassed I Love Lucy. Outside the studio, fans waited in queue for tapings. They brought her drapes and aprons made by hand. Alice was like a member of their family to them. Even at the most difficult scenes, Audrey maintained that kindness. Most actors lost money when the show was canceled by CBS in 1956 after just 1 season. Not Audrey. Beginning in 1960, she received $50,000 annually from her contract. At the time, that was more than Jackie Gleason made from reruns. In a field where women were rarely safeguarded, her bargain was unprecedented. It did, however, lay out a blueprint for how TV celebrities would eventually ensure their future. She continued to move quickly after the show concluded. She performed in around 20 shows between 1957 and 1958. When she gave a stunning performance on Studio One as a betrayed wife, viewers were astounded. Critics commended her breadth. Through appearances on Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Red Skeleton Hour, and other prominent programs, she continued to advance her career. Her career spanned several decades. She tried something different in 1959. She co-produced 10 episodes of The Honeymooners on radio. Although it was thrilling, sponsors forced her to read advertising copy that she didn't agree with. She said no. The middle of the season, she left. At the time, that was a daring stance for any performer, particularly a female musician challenging sponsors. That minor choice demonstrated the same tenacity she displayed on stage. She achieved yet another high point in 1960. That year, she received 10,000 letters. Many came from women who claimed Alice motivated them to flee violent households or pursue better opportunities. Audrey read those letters in silence. Charity organizations that helped women in similar circumstances received her donations. Insiders knew that although she kept it to herself, it was really important to her. Audrey wanted to honor the fact that her persona gave strength to actual individuals. When Audrey Meadows entered the movie industry in 1962, her touch of mink made her feel as though she had entered on another reality. Music, standing next to Cary Grant, she was doing something new, something, music, dangerous, something she had never done on camera before. Audrey made sure a body double handled the exposure for the film's naked scene, which everyone murmured about. People were unaware of the silent battle she waged in the background. Skimpy, music, attire that diminished her character was something she resisted. She repeatedly requested adjustments. Her goal was to dress like the character she was portraying. Robust, astute, and on par with Grant in terms of music. She rewrote 12 lines to give her character more authority towards the conclusion of filming. She refused to back down, even though it was uncommon for actresses at the time to do so. The rareness of the event and how it subtly advanced Hollywood were noted in her biography years later. In 1964, 2 years later, she was cast as Rosie's astute and lively aunt. She was excited and nervous when she went into the audition, but then something clicked inside of her. She began improvising on set, altering 8 sequences with music, subtle turns, and witty banter. She was paying a price behind the scenes, but those minor adjustments gave her character life and helped her get nominated for a Golden Globe. She slept very little. On some days, music lasted for 18 hours. With Broadway muscle memory, she persevered, grinning despite the exhaustion's attempts to shatter her. The film's success seemed like a triumph she had gradually gained. Then something unexpected arrived in the 1970s. She had taken a break from performing for a while, focusing on her marriage, lengthy trips, and private dinners with her spouse. However, she made a brief appearance as a guest on Music, The Odd Couple in 1970. On paper, the role was modest, but the episode's music took off. Her scene of the slapstick fight became a favorite. Approximately 25 million people watched her come back. Everyone was reminded of her significance at that one instant. She can change the mood of a room with her timing, music, and spark. Critics claimed she elevated the entire performance. One of the decade's most notable guest appearances was later featured in TV encyclopedias. Something was different by 1980. Her voice was desired. TV documentaries on classic music need narrators, and she possessed the sound that people trusted. Over 50 of them were told by her. During one music session, she casually mentioned that the apartment door and other props from The Honeymooners came, music, directly from her Broadway days. They weren't even made for the show. It made everyone feel as though those early days were true, and fans were taken aback when they heard it. Her tales transported listeners back in time, bringing them closer to their own recollections. In 1985, The Honeymooners reunion special was released. Decades of history, music, had been passed between her and Jackie Gleason by then. They laughed, reminisced, and offered fans a moment they had been waiting years to witness on camera. But backstage, that's what counted. Music, Gleason drew her aside and expressed regret for his previous outbursts, his acerbic tongue, and his outbursts of rage when the stress became too great. She later commented that she was surprised by the apologies. On the surface, the reunion seemed pleasant, but it was those intimate talks that mended past wounds. Fans were eventually able to comprehend, music, the depth of their partnership through her interviews and memoirs. Her life continued to change. In the midst of her ascent on The Honeymooners, she wed Randolph Rouse on May 26, 1956. In Connecticut, her father conducted the wedding. Although Rouse made a joke about Gleason being too busy to go, the reality was more nuanced. The marriage dissolved 2 years later, in 1958. His infidelity caused the marriage to fall apart. Audrey sent Gleason a telegram saying she was turning into a bigamist, but the anguish was deep inside her, and she used music jokes to cover up her heartbreak. She chose her career above making a public confession and hardly talked about it. Then Robert VI arrived. On August 24, 1961, in Honolulu, she wed him. He was Continental Airlines CEO. Confident, strong, and accustomed to achieving his goals. All of a sudden, Audrey was visiting over 50 countries and living in private jets and discreet luxury. He passed away on October 6, 1986, after 25 years of marriage. She remained composed throughout, managing both her own and his worlds with poise. When he was diagnosed with cancer in 1986, she adhered to the patterns she had grown up with. She concealed her problems, just like her missionary parents did. She kept her Hollywood acquaintances in the dark. She kept the news from finding out. Music, even as her husband drifted towards the end, she continued to attend gatherings with a smile and a polished appearance. He didn't reveal the truth, music, until after his death. Because she wanted to keep him safe, she kept the secret. Her generosity went well beyond her notoriety. During the 1970s and 1980s, she was a member of the board of charities related to Hollywood park racing. After becoming a billionaire from her honeymoon, she secretly donated $1 million to children's organizations, particularly those with Chinese connections. She made books and scholarships available to thousands of children. She, music, did not sign those donations. Her desire was for the work to speak for itself. She relocated to Denver when Robert Six passed away and led a modest existence. She wrote, appeared on television programs like Murder, and effortlessly returned to her roles. His estate was administered by her. Regarding her personal health, she kept quiet. In 1995, she was diagnosed with lung cancer. Smoking for years had caught up with her, music. She decided not to use forceful treatments to combat it. She had no desire for chemicals or agony. She desired tranquility. She barely mentioned it. Only after Audrey was admitted to the hospital in January 1996 did her sister find out the truth. She died on February 3, 1996, 5 days before her 74th birthday, after going into a coma on January 29. In 1994, she released her autobiography, Love Alice. Her candor about Jackie Gleason, live television, and the chaos and beauty of those early days was adored by fans. They were unaware of her deliberate omission of her condition. She wanted the book to seem cozy rather than bulky. She was admitted to the Television Hall of Fame in 1995. Everyone was shocked by her speech. By name, she thanked 1,000 fans. She went over their correspondence. She explained to them how their words helped her stay composed on long set days. Her illness was unknown. She made sure that they were the main emphasis, not herself. The headstone at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City said that she was born in 1926 rather than 1922. Over her career, she had shaved off years. That small secret remained with her even after she passed away. She was placed beside Robert Six. She established scholarships for aspiring actors in her will. No hidden offspring, no hidden descendants. The 1996 probate records made everything extremely evident. Her residuals went to her sister Jane's family, and the remainder went to Charities. A rumor attempted to change her story in early 2025. On the internet, people said a secret heir had been discovered through a DNA test. It quickly spread. Music, it had a dramatic tone. She never mentioned having kids. Unknown heirs were never a point of contention in her estate. As with the Jerry Lewis inheritance battles, where unknown offspring abruptly changed everything, the rumor was only noise feeding a trend. That was not the trend of Audrey's life. She was too cautious about her privacy. The records from 1996 already told her story. She left her legacy in music exactly where it is. In her work, in the scholarships she founded, in her gentle generosity, and in the recollections of her weekly viewers. She had many secrets in her life, but none of them were the kind that are shared on social media. They were human secrets, smaller, warmer, and revealed her true self to the very end.